go. So hi guys, if you can see us in the group, just please comment yes. And I have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Hailey Rowe. She's going to walk us through the business equation that you need to make more sales, double your sales without being pushy. So let's get started. Hailey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And I am a marketing and sales coach. I work with entrepreneurs, primarily coaches and service providers who want to get more clients consistently and do so without just needing to post more or needing a big audience to get started. And one of the things that I guess my background is I got a bachelor's in entrepreneurship. I worked in the startup world for a little bit in business development and marketing. And in 2017, I went all in on starting my own business. And, you know, it was definitely a wild ride and a lot of learning lessons. So hopefully I can share some of those with you today about how to increase your sales and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, sales is something which I feel like any entrepreneur struggles with. And recently I did a survey where I asked, my email list, what are like some of the things that they struggle with the most? And this was on the top, like just making sales. And it's also like people always have this notion that, okay, if I don't want to come across too salesy, too pushy. So it's really great that you're here to kind of walk us through the equation, the steps. So put people, put people's mind at ease and also to give them some actionable tips. So if you don't mind kind of diving right in and walking us through like what does that equation look like?
Yeah. Well, so the equation is the number of offers you make minus the no's equal your results. And I first heard that from Brooke Castillo, and I loved it because it is really simple. Because I think a lot of times we try to overcomplicate the marketing process, and we're like, oh, I gotta, be on Pinterest. I gotta be on YouTube. I gotta do these things. And the truth is, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you pick, as long as you're making offers. And we'll talk about what I mean by that. And you're learning from your no's, and then you're working backwards to see how many offers do I need to make to get the results that I want. So with that offers piece, this is what trips people up. They think that when I say that, what I mean is just go out there and, sell your program and see if people want to buy it. And that's not what I necessarily mean. There's different kinds of offers, right? So there's making an offer on a discovery call with a potential client who reached out to you and wants to hear about it. And there's making an offer for a freebie, like training like this, or a free guide or something like that, that gets the conversation started and then can lead to a paid offer. So there's a whole, and I could go into it if you want, but there's a process from taking that cold lead to a client and warm lead. And your focus has to be on making those offers and nurturing those relationships and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you're so right. A lot of people get confused with offers. So if you don't mind just kind of telling us a little bit more, and the ones that are watching in the group, I want you guys to comment, what is it that you struggle with the most when it comes to making sales with your products and your offers and your services? So just comment in the chat and let us know so we can touch upon those subjects as well. But yes, Hailey, I would love for you to elaborate a little bit more on the offers part.
Yeah. So there is something that I call my 4 basics of client attraction. And it's the process of, again, taking a cold lead to a client. And it goes like this. You first have to connect, then you have to engage, then you make a pre-offer, and then you make a paid offer. So connecting, what I mean by that is you got to decide what's going to be your top 1 to 2 ways of getting in front of your ideal client. And if you're not sure, you have to kind of think about, where do they hang out? What would make the most sense? What's the lowest hanging fruit? Who do I already know? That kind of thing, and start there and brainstorm a list, and then kind of like pick 1 or 2. And there's no wrong decision. You're going to get clearer when you pick something. So just pick something. But then you have to take it to the next step, which is engage. And what I mean by engage is you want to ask a curiosity type of question that can lead to a meaningful conversation. So it's not that you want to just, go out there and say, hey, how was your day? How are you doing? Like, that's great. And you can, build rapport, but we do want to ask questions in our posts and to our followers and in polls and in our emails and in direct messages to welcoming our new followers to our page. That's a little bit more intentional. So you want to pick a question that's not like, hey, you know, let's say I'm a weight loss coach. You don't want to be like, hey, are you looking to lose weight? You don't want it to be something that can be assumptive or maybe offensive, but you do want it to be something like, hey, what are you working on these days when it comes to, like, I see we're both into personal development. Like, what are you working on? Or in business, I see like, hey, are you looking to take on new clients these days? I might have some free resources I could share if so. Like, so sentences, like questions that aren't just for no reason. Cause I think actually a lot of times people are like, oh, I think they get afraid of asking these questions and maybe getting a no. And it's okay if you get a no, but it's better to be direct and to be, again, intentional and seeing if you can add value. We're not saying, hey, are you looking to get healthy so that I can give you my program? That's not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to get in a conversation and connect and engage so that we can then move to, or see if it makes sense to move to the next phase, which is making a pre-offer. So when you're making a pre-offer, that is something that gives value up front,
right,
and gives a quick win up front so that they can have a place to go with them or see if it makes sense to make a paid offer. Because a lot of times people skip, they go to connect, engage, and then paid offer.
right.
And that's where you're missing the step. So you got to have that pre-offer in there, whether it's your webinar or your free class or your freebie or this free training or whatever, that builds the know, like, and trust, that shows that they can get a quick win with you, and then can more naturally, without being pushy and in a permission-based way, see if they want to take it to the next step, which is a sales offer or a discovery call or a more salesy webinar or something like that. So these steps are really important because if you get overwhelmed easily, you're probably already doing these steps, but you're doing them kind of like sporadically or inconsistently, or your question isn't tight enough, or there's something going on in one of those steps that needs tweaking. But when you can see it like this framework, we can then be like, okay, which part is the weakest for you, or which things need to be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. By the way, those are like really, really good tips right there, guys, because especially what you said, Hailey, about that free offer, because a lot of people just jump right to the paid offer without first establishing that trust, that credibility. And by giving something of value for free, you're building that relationship with this potential customer who's going to then most likely buy your paid offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
What about the next thing? What are some of the other things to keep in mind?
Yeah. So a couple things. One is all this has to be, notice how it's questions, notice how it's curiosity, notice how it's permission-based. I think a lot of times people avoid altogether connecting with their ideal clients or being visible because they feel like I'm a burden, or I'm so annoying, or I'm being pushy. But when you come at it with the energy that I just said, curiosity, permission-based, asking questions, being intentional about, can I help this person, or how can we make this a win-win relationship? Like, that's a way better way to do it. And then you'll actually get yourself to do it. The other thing I would say is when it comes to sales, I think a lot of times people are afraid of getting the no's, and that's the second half of the equation. So the offers minus the no's equal your results. So when we were looking at the no's, it's really important that you want to get some no's, because you can learn from those and you can see what's not landing with your offer, or do you need to change the title of your freebie, or is your offer going to the wrong audience? But we need to be able to look at, why are you getting no's, and lean into that feedback, and even ask like, oh, no worries, but like, I'm just curious, if you're on a discovery call and somebody says no, like why is it a no for you? Just so I can continue improving. Right. And I think it's really important to just see it as data and not take it super personally, because it is just data, and it doesn't mean anything about you. It just means something about the process, or something about your offer, or something about the audience maybe needs some tweaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's essential. Feedback is like super important no matter what you're doing, right? And I like the idea of either like you're saying on the discovery call asking, or even doing these surveys that sometimes we do with our email list. And it's just a great way for you to kind of get that insight, which you would miss out on. And that's the best way for you to improve your product, improve your offers. And that's what I have done in business. Every single thing that I've ever created, whether it's a product or a service, has really, really originated from feedback, whether me working one-on-one with people or simply doing these surveys by email or something like that, or even interacting in my Facebook group like we are right now. That is honestly the best way to make the most use of your time, because otherwise you're going to create stuff that nobody wants. And this is the way that you can really tailor it to your target audience, like you said. Now, what are some of the other things to keep in mind, Hailey?
Yeah. Well, I want to just acknowledge something that I've observed just since I've gotten to know you better. And if that's okay, because I think it can be a lesson for your audience. You are very good at giving value, but also showing and connecting it back to how you can help them further. So
Right.
like we just did a live and you were saying like, yes, here's the things you need for your business, but if you want the exact templates, I have them for you. And here's the gap. Here's like where, here's what it's costing you to not have legal backup. Like my dad, and you shared a story. My dad got a $90,000 lawsuit as a business owner who wasn't, multi seven-figure business owner. You don't have to be and you knocked down the myths people think like, oh, that wouldn't happen to me because I'm just a small fish.
Yeah.
Or that wouldn't happen to me because XYZ. And you addressed it in a very short time period, but you did. And it was like, great, because number one, you weren't being pushy. You weren't saying you guys need my templates, or you're going to fail. No, but you were just sharing like, hey, I want to stress that like this has happened to people and I don't want you to get hurt in your business. So it was out of service. It was out of like caring, but it was also connecting back. Here's the gap in your business that we have to address. So I just want to say like, for anybody who's like, I feel like I'm not good at doing intentional content. Like I'm just posting and sharing a tip, but I'm not making those pre-offers, or I'm not tying it back to my freebie, or I'm not tying it back to my offer. I'm not making a call to action. That is one takeaway you can have from today is how can at the end of my post or whatever, can I start making these intentional calls to action? And it's the other thing that you're good at is email marketing. And I'm assuming you do not have the mindset. A lot of people have the mindset of bothering them. They don't want to hear from me. I'm a burden. But the truth is because you're in my face and in my mind, I'm like, I always will go to you for legal stuff. Like, I'm like, this is my girl. She knows what she's doing,
Right.
And I don't think it's annoying. I don't think that, you have to stop thinking of your business as a burden. You're thinking, I'm assuming what you're thinking, Amira, is like, I got to help these people get their legal situation figured out. And I don't want them to get hurt. So the last thing I'll say about sales, if you're feeling like, I want to address this pushy piece, because that was part of our title, is you don't want to feel pushy. Sales is getting somebody intellectually and emotionally engaged in a solution that they feel is right for them. So we are not trying to convince somebody that our offer is the answer to them, but we are trying to see logically and emotionally and physically, like, what are some costs and problems they're dealing with, and can we solve it with them or for them? And that's what sales is. And that's what, part of having a business is. And that's kind of your responsibility, because here's the thing that I like to tell people who are afraid of sales too, is you might be really good at your craft or your service or your product, but you hate sales, or you hate marketing, or you think it's bad, or you have some thought doo-doo about those things, like pre-existing stories you've made up about sales and marketing based on past experiences. And because of that, your ideal clients might be going to somebody else who's just better at sales and marketing, who doesn't have as good of a product, because you're hiding, or because you have these doo-doo thoughts about sales and marketing. So to me, it's more of like a protective thing. Like if you're good at what you do and you know you care about your clients, I'm like, you got to get out there, because there's people who are getting out there who maybe aren't as caring as you, and getting the business just because they don't have doo-doo thoughts about sales and marketing.
Yeah, no, very well said. And thank you for, by the way, picking up on all those things. You're so observant and so right about my tactics and my techniques. And I 100% agree with everything you said, Hailey. You would be doing your audience a disservice if you don't share. And a long time ago, I read somewhere, and this is when I first started business, is like, and this is something, guys, you should keep in mind too. Somebody has to literally look at your offer 7 times. 7 times, not 1 time, not twice, but 7 times to kind of make that decision to buy from you. So if you just, for example, just share a post 1 time, that's not enough. 2 times, not enough. You have to come at them with different angles. And like you mentioned, the objections, the myths that you want to dismiss. And these are just some of the ways, these are persuasive ways that you reach your audience. And you have to come at them in these different ways, whether it's through social media, whether it's the email marketing, whether it's Facebook ads. But just keep in mind that somebody's got to look at your stuff, at least, this is the average, at least 7 times before they're going to decide to buy from you. So
and more recently, I saw somewhere, I don't know where I saw this, so don't take this as the only answer, but I've recently saw somewhere that because our attention spans are so short, and because of TikTok and like all the short videos and stuff, now it's like they need to see you 77 times to remember who you are. And I also saw there's a new stat that is like, most people, 60% of people don't respond or like doesn't register until the 4th follow-up.
Yes, 100%.
So you're not being repetitive. If you feel like a robot, remind yourself that's you, because you're doing it. So you, of course, remember that you've done this 500 times, but everybody else is in their own heads, in their own world. They're not thinking about you. And I think sometimes we have the spotlight like effect, they call it in psychology. Like everybody's like looking at me and overanalyzing, and they've heard me say this before. And it's not true.
It's not true, because like you said, the attention spans are like not there, and it's just 100% true. Yeah, you got to remind them. And so guys, next time when you're sending that email again, just don't be afraid to repeat yourself, because somebody may not have even seen the 1st or 2nd or 3rd, 4th email, and it's maybe the 6th email. And I'll give you an actual real example. There's somebody who was on my email list from 2019, and I kid you not, she was on my email list from 2019, apparently sporadically checking my emails. But guess when she decided to buy from me? This November. She bought my biggest package, the VIP legal bundle, all of that. Never ever expected that someone's going to sit on my email list for literally 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 22. So 3 years later, she decides to buy from me. But there goes that example that we're just talking about, that someone could be on your email list, silently observing, and they know that this is the person for them, but they're just not ready yet. But you just have to keep doing your part, Yeah,
I can't tell you how many times I've had silent viewers, silent listeners who end up buying. And usually the people who end up buying, they are quiet. Like they're busy in their own life. Like the decision makers, they're not the ones usually like on your lives, like, hi.
Yes.
I think that's always the case, but that is so true. And I think sometimes we give up too soon because we think, oh, nobody's paying attention, nobody's watching. But they are. I can't tell you how many times I've been on discovery calls and somebody's like, oh, I've been in your group for 3 years, never have commented, never have liked it.
Right.
And engagement these days is getting harder too. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Like sometimes on Instagram, your posts or on a Facebook page, for example, will go to like 6% of your followers or likers.
True.
So not everybody's even seeing it. And don't be discouraged by lack of engagement. Focus more on what we talked about, which was making your pre-offers, engaging with the followers you do have and who are, liking your stuff and all that. And those relationship building types of conversations.
Yeah, no, excellent advice there, Hailey. Quick question for you. So when it comes to like high ticket offers versus low ticket offers, should the strategy be different? Because that's something I know a question has come up in the past, even when I was working with, when I was giving coaching and things like that. So I would love to get some input from you as to how a person should approach the high ticket versus the low ticket.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to low ticket, you might need to address less objections. You might not need to have a sales or discovery call. You could probably just have a really good sales page or sales webinar with the sales page and be able to sell the offer.
Right.
If you have a high ticket offer, you're going to have to probably address more objections, FAQs, et cetera, in your email funnel, in your trainings, and that kind of stuff. You're going to have to, typically, a lot of people have discovery calls. I do know, though, that you can have a very good webinar, free training, and sales page that goes through pretty much everything. And then can just do, like if they have questions, do emailing back and forth or social media messaging or something like that. So that is totally a possibility. But usually it's easier if you're just open to taking a discovery call. And so the difference would be, with the high ticket offer, you would probably have calls more. And the other difference is the sales cycle time duration is going to be different. So for a lower ticket offer, someone might discover you today from a Facebook ad and you have this like cool bundle that's $27 and they might be like, okay, sounds good.
Right.
If it's a high ticket offer, it might be more like of what you experienced, where they were on your email list for a long time before they made the decision. So sometimes they say 90 days can be a typical like this was actually, this wasn't for coaching. This was a study. This is something they did with like car people. And when somebody's thinking about getting a car, it takes them like 90 days to decide, but that's a high ticket thing, right? So like 90 days or sometimes longer is kind of where you need to expect, okay, people are going to be coming in and they're going to be getting to know the offer and all that kind of stuff. So, and a lot of times people will go through a launch with you for your high ticket offer and maybe not buy at that time, but then the next time they buy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's so great. I love everything that you've shared. Is there anything else like you would like to share with our audience that are watching? By the way, everything that you've shared is like really, really great information.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, if there are any questions that you have, please post them in the comments, and Hailey or myself will definitely get back to you, because I know that this is the topic that a lot of us struggle with. I've experienced it myself when I was new into business, and some of those things that we worry about, we don't want to come across salesy, we don't want to come across pushy. So I hope today's discussion has kind of opened up your eyes and have you look at things from a different perspective. So Hailey, is there anything else that, any other tips or strategies that you would love to share?
Yeah, so I want to highlight, if you are somebody who, I want to be making more pre-offers, I want to be, I don't know if my pre-offer is good or not, that kind of stuff. Obviously, feel free to post questions or reach out to me on Instagram at Hailey_Rowe. It's HAILEY_ROWE. But I do have a freebie, and Amira will share the link to a content that sells roadmaps. So it's a process that I take you through to be able to talk about what you do in slightly different ways, so you don't feel like a robot. So it goes through different types of content you want to be hitting to have a comprehensive strategic content plan. And then number 2, it talks about calls to action examples. So if you've been struggling with the wording about that, or you don't know how to do it, there's some tips in there on that. And the other thing that you'll share is just a call booking page for me if you want to book your own free strategy consult and talk about your marketing strategy and how to get out there and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there are going to be 2 awesome freebies, guys, that I'm going to share. Number 1, you're going to have access to Hailey for that consult. You can book a call with her to discuss things. And number 2 will be that freebie that Hailey just talked about, which is going to walk you through how to have free content that sells. And there's a roadmap like she talked about. So I'm going to share the links in the comments. So definitely check them out, because as Hailey said, these are really, really great tips. And these are things that are definitely going to move the needle in your business, because if you don't understand sales and it's something that you struggle with, no matter how great your offer is or how enticing it is, it's not going to convert if you don't get those things in together, like that equation that she talked about. So in the end, anything else, Hailey? If not, then thank you so much for your time. You know how to reach her. I'm going to share her Instagram as well. But anything else, Hailey, before we leave?
Yeah, I also have the Health Coach Nation podcast for coaches. But the other thing I want to say is if you do book a call, there's a question in there about how'd you find me? You can mention Amira. And if you end up enrolling in a course or anything like that, you'll get a couple bonuses. One, because you're from Amira's tribe. So you'll get my TikTok and branding expert trainings and my 10K it's called Your Next 10K Starter Guide. So it has kind of the essential things to help you get your next 10K in sales.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much, Hailey, for your valuable time. This was honestly very, very helpful. I know I enjoyed it and I learned a thing or two. So I'm sure the people that are going to watch the replay, there will be some great tips that they're going to take away from this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.